Well, it's good to be back with you for another day of Bible study. We are in this series of weeks called Perspective Shift, where our hope is to be able to understand where our perspectives about the church have gone wrong into something that God never intended for the church to be or to do, and hopefully gain some perspective on what He actually did intend for His church, for you, for me. And so as we continue on this journey, we're thankful for all of those who are part of Christ Table. Christ Table is the reason why this is brought to you 4 days a week and on Sundays, and we couldn't do it without you. Would encourage you to go to www.christtable.today and let us know that you're there. One of the best things that you can do is sign up for our email list there if you haven't already. And we would love to encourage you to help support us financially, as we need you in order for us to continue to be able to do these things each and every day. But it's not just an online Bible study a few days a week. We actually design, prepare, and send out resources to help you navigate your spiritual journey yourself in your own home, but with a community of other people, both in your neighborhood and across the U.S. and the world. One of the primary ways in which we do that is by putting physical, spiritual, transformational resources into your hands. And so every couple of months, we send out a box of materials to everybody who's a part of Christ Table so that they can join us. There's a Bible study in there. There's a book, a great book always in there. That we do book studies about. There's also other materials to help you guide your family along the spiritual journey during the few months that happen right after the box arrives in your home. And we've got one that is being sent out here in just over a week. And so the primary way that you can receive that is simply by being a part of Christ's Table, by giving, or just by letting us know that you'd like to have one to try it, because we just send this for free to everybody who's a regular donor to Christ's Table. We'd love to get this in your hands by either being a donor here to Christ's Table, making a contribution, or just simply let us know and we'll send one to you for free. This Bible study, though, if you'd like to participate in it, get the rest of the reading schedule, or go back and start from the beginning, you can do that by heading over to go.christtable.today/perspective shift. And so now, I guess, without any further ado, let's dig in. When we come to Acts chapter 28, verses 11 through 16, one of the things that becomes kind of immediately apparent and obvious to us is that we are following Paul in a situation that is becoming extraordinarily and increasingly difficult to him. As we see Paul, he has been on several missionary journeys throughout the book of Acts, and we've followed him through several of these. But even more so than that, Paul has now found himself in a situation where he is incarcerated, where he has come to a place where he is headed to Rome, and he has endured a lot as prisoner in order to get to Rome. He's now been shipwrecked on this island in Malta. Everybody thankfully survived that shipwreck, but even at that, they had to stay there and lose 3 days or more from their time in which they were supposed to be heading to Rome. All the people in Rome are waiting on Paul, and yet he's been shipwrecked on this island. And part of our thing that we've kind of talked about over the last few days is sometimes your life's going to get shipwrecked. Sometimes the plans in which you have for yourself are just not going to be able to happen at all, or on the timetable in which you had wanted those things to happen. Sometimes that may be a shipwreck that comes into your life because of something that you have done, but other times those circumstances, like this one with Paul, may be absolutely and completely out of your control. All that you can possibly do is to deal with it and move on with the circumstances and the ramifications of that came into your life. So when we come here to Acts chapter 28, now verse 11, Paul has been on the island of Malta for 3 months, experiencing kindness there. So 3 months after the shipwreck, Luke writes that they now set out again on another ship, obviously because the ship they had been on was destroyed, that had wintered at the island. Now this was an Alexandrian ship with the twin gods as its figurehead. And I find this fascinating. I don't even know that I've ever seen this before, that Luke the writer points out that the ship in which they now go to Rome on is an Alexandrian ship that has as its figurehead the twin gods. This isn't the God. This isn't the one true God that Paul worships, that Jews worship. Obviously, it's not even a monotheistic religion there that is being celebrated, because there are twin gods, not just one. So there are a lot of issues with this. And I know a lot of times followers of God, Christians, they have a real difficult time doing or participating in anything that might smack of showing allegiance or receiving help from other places or things outside of Christianity. And I think that this is such a very important idea here, because what we see, and before I go on to this verse, I want to come and, yeah, is this the one? No, is this the one? Yeah, here we go. Sometimes other gods may carry you to where God needs you. You know, back in this verse, in verse 11, is an Alexandrian ship with the twin gods as its figurehead. And this ship that is dedicated to other gods actually becomes a part of Paul's God story. And I just think that there is something there to be said for this idea that sometimes it may be things that are not of God that bring you to God. It may be things that are not godly and that God maybe never intended to be necessary as a part of your journey, but which bring you to the place where God needs you to be in order to be able to walk forward in his steps. Think about that for just a moment. Think about the things that have brought you maybe to where you are now in your journey. Maybe some of those things are things in which you're maybe a little ashamed of. Maybe whenever you tell your story, you cut those things out because they are embarrassing. People might not understand. It doesn't reflect well on you, but you recognize that it's a part, maybe sometimes a painful or a guilty part of you, yet you understand that it shaped you into who you are now and brought you to the place now where you're in a healthier place, where you're trying to do better, trying to live better, trying to be better, following God as best you may. But other people might not fully understand whenever you share that, how important it was to shaping you into who you are today. And I think, though, that you should not necessarily be ashamed of those things. And other times you may actually even now be in a situation where you're saying to yourself, this can't be of God. This ship that I'm on, the storm that I am working my way through, this body of water that I'm navigating my way, hopefully, to the other side, isn't something that I feel like is where I need to be in life. I feel like I'm not in the right boat. I feel like I'm not on the right body of water. You may feel like you're not in the right profession. You're not in the right career. You may feel like you're not in the right relational situation. You may feel like you're not in the right church or religious community situation. Something feels off, and you're trying to navigate that. And yet this may be right where you need to be, because it is bringing you to the place where God needs you to be. Be at peace. Paul here is in a ship dedicated to a foreign god that's taking him to where he needs to be. Our first stop was Syracuse, where we stayed 3 days, and from there we sailed to Rhegium. And then a day later, a south wind began blowing, so the following day we sailed up the coast to Puteoli, where we found some believers who invited us to spend a week with them. More uncommon kindness. I love that. The church, we said this yesterday, must look to the world for uncommon kindness. Well, here, Paul has found other Christians, other believers, who offer for a week for them to be able to spend with them. This isn't just Paul and Luke. This is everybody on the ship who's needing to find places in which to stay on this journey. The world should not be as kind as the church is, and yet it's oftentimes the opposite of that. And kind of touched on that yesterday, that the church may need to look to the world for kindness. And these believers show that level of uncommon kindness that we should be giving to all people. We don't just offer Jesus, we offer the kindness, the compassion, the care, the love that Jesus offered. And so we came to Rome. The brothers and sisters in Rome had heard we were coming, and they came to meet us at the Forum on the Appian Way, which is the primary road and thoroughfare into and through the city of Rome. Others joined us at the Three Taverns. If I had time, I could go into a discussion of Christians and alcohol and Paul meeting other believers at the Three Taverns. When Paul saw them, he was encouraged and he thanked God. When we arrived in Rome, Paul was permitted to have his own private lodging, though he was guarded by a soldier. And so what we have here is essentially Paul under house arrest, awaiting trial under circumstances which were awful. But fortunately, at this moment, he's able to essentially be as free as is possible while awaiting trial. And it's amazing that Paul, if we follow the story up until now, Paul's been a prisoner. That's why he's on the ship headed to Rome. That's why he spent all that time on the island of Malta. And Paul now is going to spend weeks and I think even months kind of awaiting and navigating this trial situation, an extended period of time in Rome. And yet, Paul still does ministry. Paul still lives out his faith, and Paul is still deeply and personally involved in helping others live out their faith and be transformed and come to know Christ more wholly and more fully, even though he's in a set of circumstances that he would not choose, even though, quite literally, his feet are tied, his hands are tied. He is under house arrest in a situation where he has limits, but yet he still finds a way to love God, to worship God, and to serve God by helping others. You may be chained to something today. You may be in bondage. You may not be in the situation that gives you full freedom to live how you want to live, but live anyway. Even if you have to live within the confines of boundaries that are restricting or that would not have been of your choosing, find a way to still live. Don't pine or long for tomorrow. Don't glorify the past. Live in the moment. Be you in the moment, whatever the circumstances may be. God can use you. God will use you. God is using you. Until tomorrow, happy reading.